Welcome back to my channel. The Grand Exhibition Hall buzzed with excitement. The world's biggest automotive investors had gathered for one purpose: to discover the next revolutionary engine. Luxury manufacturers displayed futuristic prototypes worth millions. Robots polished carbon fiber body panels. Engineers in expensive suits proudly presented their latest technology. Then, an old pickup truck slowly rolled into the exhibition parking lot. Employees laughed. From the truck stepped Ethan Brooks, a humble single father wearing grease-stained work clothes. Behind him walked his 12-year-old daughter, Emma, carrying a small metal toolbox. Inside the truck bed rested a homemade V12 engine mounted on a steel stand. No expensive display. No flashy lights. Just months of hard work. Emma looked around nervously. "Dad. Everyone here looks so important." Ethan smiled. "They're here to judge engines. Not people." They wheeled the engine into the exhibition hall. Almost immediately, people began whispering. "Did he build that in his garage? It looks handmade. There's no way that thing can compete." At the center stage stood Victoria Lawson, CEO of Titan Hypercars. She had built one of the largest luxury automotive companies in the world. As Ethan approached, Victoria glanced at his display and laughed. "You actually paid for a booth?" Ethan answered calmly. "I earned it." Victoria smirked. "You brought a garage project to an international investors summit. You should have brought business cards instead." Several executives laughed. Emma lowered her eyes. Ethan gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't listen. The engine will speak for itself." Victoria folded her arms. "So tell me, what makes your homemade engine special?" Ethan looked directly at her. "I designed it to produce more power while using less fuel." The audience chuckled. One engineer shook his head. "Every company has been chasing that dream for decades." Ethan replied quietly. "I wasn't trying to chase them. I was trying to solve the problem." Victoria smiled sarcastically. "Bold words. But investors don't fund dreams. They fund proof." She pointed toward the demonstration platform. "If your engine works, I'll personally apologize. But if it fails, you'll leave this exhibition immediately." The audience applauded. Emma whispered, "Dad, are you nervous?" Ethan smiled. "No. I've already tested the engine. The only surprise today is for everyone else." As technicians prepared the engine for its first public start, a black limousine stopped outside the exhibition center. 5 billionaire investors stepped out together. The moment they heard Ethan's name, they changed direction. Instead of visiting the luxury manufacturers, they walked straight toward his small handmade engine. Victoria's confident smile slowly disappeared. The exhibition hall fell completely silent. 5 billionaire investors walked directly toward Ethan's display, ignoring every luxury booth around them. Victoria frowned. Who invited them here? One investor, Richard Sullivan, stopped in front of the handmade V12 engine. He smiled. "So, this is the engine everyone's been talking about." Victoria looked confused. "You've heard about this?" Richard nodded. "For months. Our research team has been tracking an independent engineer who built something extraordinary in a home garage." He looked at Ethan. "I didn't expect it to be you." The other investors slowly circled the engine. One examined the cylinder heads. Another inspected the crankshaft. A third studied the custom fuel system. None of them spoke for nearly 5 minutes. Finally, an elderly investor looked up. "Who designed these combustion chambers?" Ethan answered. "I did. Every measurement was calculated by hand. The investor smiled. I haven't seen craftsmanship like this in 20 years. The crowd began whispering. The CEO's engineers looked nervous. Victoria crossed her arms. Beautiful machining doesn't mean it works. Ethan nodded. I agree. Let's start it. The organizers rolled the engine onto the testing platform. Technicians connected the fuel lines. Sensors monitored temperature, pressure, airflow, and power output. Emma quietly squeezed her father's hand. You've got this, Dad. Ethan smiled. We've got this. Victoria handed Ethan the ignition key. Go ahead. Let's see your miracle. Ethan took a deep breath. He turned the key. For 1 second. Nothing happened. The audience chuckled. Victoria smiled confidently.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Enjoy the video.
I thought so. Then. Click. The fuel pumps came alive. A second later. Boom. The V12 roared to life. The sound echoed through the entire convention center. Every conversation stopped. The deep, smooth exhaust note filled the hall. It didn't just sound powerful. It sounded perfectly balanced. The engineers stared at the live monitor. One whispered. Impossible. The performance graphs began climbing. Horsepower. Torque. Fuel efficiency. Every number exceeded expectations. The chief technician looked at the screen in disbelief. I've checked it 3 times. It produces 18% more power than the current benchmark, while consuming 22% less fuel. The audience erupted into applause. Victoria's confident expression vanished. Richard Sullivan slowly smiled. I've seen enough. He turned toward Ethan. My investment firm is prepared to offer $10 million. The room gasped. Before Ethan could answer, another investor raised his hand. I'll offer $15 million. A third investor smiled. $20 million. The bidding had begun. Victoria watched in complete disbelief. Just minutes earlier, she had mocked the engine as a garage project. Now, some of the wealthiest investors in the world were competing to own it. But before Ethan could respond, a man in a dark suit rushed onto the stage holding an official document. He looked directly at Ethan. Mr. Brooks. You need to see this immediately. This engine may already belong to someone else. The entire hall froze. The exhibition hall fell into complete silence. The man in the dark suit held up an official-looking document. My name is Michael Grant. I'm the legal director of Nova Dynamics. He looked directly at Ethan. According to our records, the core technology inside this engine belongs to our company. The audience gasped. Victoria folded her arms and smiled. So, your miracle engine is stolen? Several reporters immediately pointed their cameras at Ethan. Flashbulbs lit up the stage. Emma looked terrified. Dad! You didn't steal anything. Ethan gently squeezed her hand. I know. And I'm going to prove it. Michael placed a thick folder on the table. Our company patented a variable combustion system 3 years ago. We believe Mr. Brooks copied our design. The investors exchanged uneasy glances. Richard Sullivan looked at Ethan. Can you answer that? Ethan quietly opened his old toolbox. Instead of pulling out a legal document, he removed a worn leather notebook. Its pages were stained with oil. Corners were torn. The cover simply read, Engine Journal. He placed the notebook on the table. My father gave me this when I was 19. I've been adding to it ever since. Michael laughed. A notebook doesn't beat a patent. Ethan smiled. No. But dates do. The exhibition organizers carefully examined every page. Each design sketch carried handwritten dates. Some were over 15 years old. Long before Nova Dynamics had even filed its patent. The chief organizer compared the notebook with Nova's patent drawings. His expression changed. The concepts are similar. But these designs were created years earlier. Michael's confidence began to fade. Then Emma noticed something tucked inside the notebook. "Dad! There's another envelope." Ethan carefully opened it. Inside was an old USB drive labeled Prototype Test, Year 12. The organizers connected it to the giant screen. A video began playing. A much younger Ethan stood inside a tiny garage beside his late father. The homemade engine was already running perfectly. The video timestamp showed it had been recorded 12 years earlier. The audience erupted into whispers. Richard smiled. "So, you built this before their patent even existed." Michael's face turned pale. This isn't possible." Just then, one of Nova Dynamics' former engineers stood up from the audience. "My name is Daniel Ross. I resigned from Nova 2 years ago. I recognize Ethan's design." Everyone looked at him. He continued. "Our executives didn't invent the technology. They copied it." The room exploded into chaos. Reporters rushed toward Michael. Investors demanded answers. Victoria stood frozen. Only minutes ago, she believed Ethan's dream was over. Now, it appeared he wasn't the thief. He was the original inventor. Before anyone could speak again, Richard Sullivan stood up. He smiled at Ethan. "I've changed my offer." He raised his bidding paddle. $30 million. Another investor immediately responded. $35 million. Then a third voice echoed across the hall. $40 million. The bidding war had only just begun. The convention hall erupted into chaos. $40 million. The crowd couldn't believe what they were hearing. Reporters rushed toward the stage. Cameras flashed from every direction. Victoria Lawson stood speechless. Just an hour earlier, she had laughed at Ethan's homemade engine. Now the world's wealthiest investors were fighting to own it. Richard Sullivan calmly raised his paddle again. $42 million. Another investor smiled. $45 million. The audience gasped. Emma looked at her father. "Dad! They're offering more money than I can even imagine." Ethan smiled softly. "Money isn't why we built this." Emma nodded proudly. "I know." Meanwhile, police officers entered the exhibition hall. They walked directly toward Michael Grant. The lead detective held up an arrest warrant. "Mr. Grant, you are under investigation for corporate fraud, patent theft, and intellectual property violations." The room fell silent. Michael tried to protest. "You don't understand." The detective interrupted him. "We've recovered internal emails proving your company copied Mr. Brooks' engineering journals after one of your former employees secretly photographed them years ago." Michael's face turned pale. As officers placed him in handcuffs, reporters captured every moment. Victoria slowly walked toward Ethan. "I owe you an apology. I judged your clothes, your garage, and your engine." She lowered her head. "I was wrong." Ethan smiled politely. "The greatest ideas don't always come from the biggest companies. They often come from people who refuse to give up." Victoria nodded. "I'll never forget that." Just then, the chief engineer overseeing the engine test hurried onto the stage. "Everyone, you need to see these final results." A giant screen lit up. The numbers stunned the audience. 1,420 horsepower. 22% lower fuel consumption. 18% lower emissions. Highest efficiency score ever recorded at the expo. The hall exploded into applause. One veteran engineer whispered, "This engine could change the entire automotive industry." Richard Sullivan stood again. He looked directly at Ethan. "I'm increasing my offer. $50 million. The room went silent. That was the largest investment offer ever made during the exhibition. Before Ethan could answer, another billionaire slowly stood up. It was Sophia Bennett, founder of one of the world's largest electric vehicle companies. She smiled. "I won't offer more money." Everyone looked confused. "Instead," she said, "I want to offer something better. A partnership. You keep your engine. You keep your patents. And together, we'll build the future." The audience burst into applause. Ethan looked at Emma. She smiled. "I think Grandpa would have liked that." Ethan took a deep breath. Then looked back at the investors. His decision would change his life forever. The entire convention center waited for Ethan's answer. On one side, Richard Sullivan's $50 million offer. On the other, Sophia Bennett's partnership proposal. Every camera in the room focused on Ethan. Emma whispered, "Dad, what are you going to do?" Ethan smiled. "The same thing your grandfather would have done." He stepped toward the microphone. "I appreciate every offer. $50 million would change our lives forever." He paused. "But I didn't build this engine just to sell it. I built it because I believe it can make cars cleaner, stronger, and more efficient." The audience listened in complete silence. "So, I accept the partnership." The hall exploded into applause. Sophia smiled and walked onto the stage. "You just made the smartest business decision I've seen in years." Richard Sullivan laughed. "I was hoping you'd say no." Everyone looked confused. He continued, "I wasn't trying to buy your engine. I wanted to see if you'd sell your dream." Ethan smiled. "I never planned to." Richard nodded with respect. "Exactly. That's why I still want to invest." He turned toward Sophia. "My company will join your partnership." Another investor stood. "So will mine." Within seconds, 3 more investors joined them. The original $50 million bidding war transformed into a joint investment fund worth over $120 million. The audience erupted into cheers. Victoria walked onto the stage carrying a small presentation box. Inside was a platinum medal. It read, "Innovation Award, International Engineering Expo." She handed it to Ethan. "This award has never been given to an independent engineer. You earned it." Ethan accepted it with a humble smile. "This belongs to everyone who believed in me. Especially my daughter." Emma wiped away happy tears as the audience gave her a standing ovation. Just then, one of the engineers rushed toward the stage holding a tablet. "Mr. Brooks, you need to see this." A live news broadcast appeared on the giant screen. Every major automotive company in the world was reporting Ethan's story. One headline read, "Garage mechanic defeats global automakers with handmade engine." Another read, "The future of performance has arrived." The crowd applauded once again. As the celebration continued, an elderly man quietly approached Ethan. He carried an old wooden box. "I knew your father. He asked me to give you this. But only after the world recognized your talent." Inside the box was a brass key. And a folded letter. Across the envelope were the words, "For Ethan. When you finally finish what we started." Ethan slowly opened the letter. As he read the first page, his eyes filled with tears. He looked at the old man. You mean? My father built another engine? The old man nodded. Not just another engine. The greatest one he ever designed. And it's been hidden for over 20 years. The audience stood frozen. The convention hall remained silent. Ethan carefully unfolded the letter his father had left behind more than 20 years earlier. His hands trembled as he read the first lines. My dear son, if you're reading this, it means the world finally believes in your talent. Never build engines for money. Build them to inspire people. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. Emma gently held his hand. Dad. Grandpa always knew you'd succeed. Ethan smiled. He never stopped believing. The elderly man placed an old blueprint on the table. This is your father's final project. Across the top, in faded handwriting, were the words. Project Phoenix. The blueprint described an engine unlike anything the automotive industry had ever imagined. It combined incredible performance with remarkable fuel efficiency and ultra-low emissions. Sophia Bennett studied the drawings carefully. She looked at Ethan in amazement. If this design works, it could change the future of performance cars forever. 6 months later, a new research center opened under the name Brooks Engineering Innovations. Instead of hiring only famous engineers, Ethan invited young mechanics, university students, and independent inventors from around the world. His philosophy was simple. Talent isn't determined by your resume. It's determined by your dedication. Emma proudly helped welcome the first group of students. 1 year later, the completed Project Phoenix engine was unveiled before thousands of journalists. The entire automotive industry watched the live broadcast. Victoria Lawson stood beside Ethan on stage. She smiled. The first time we met, I laughed at your handmade engine. I judged your clothes instead of your knowledge. I'm grateful you gave me the chance to learn from my mistake. Ethan nodded. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we learn from them. The chairman of the International Automotive Federation stepped forward carrying a crystal trophy. Ethan Brooks. For your extraordinary innovation and your commitment to mentoring future engineers, we proudly present you with the Global Engineering Excellence Award. The audience rose to their feet. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. As the ceremony came to an end, Emma smiled at her father. Dad. Remember when people laughed at us for arriving in that old pickup truck? Ethan laughed softly. I remember. Emma asked. So, what are we driving home today? Sophia pointed toward a brand new prototype supercar. It's yours. Ethan smiled, then shook his head. No, thank you. Everyone looked surprised. He walked toward the same old pickup truck that had carried his handmade engine to the exhibition. He placed his father's toolbox back into the truck bed. This truck carried my dreams before anyone believed in them. I'm never getting rid of it. The crowd applauded once again. As Ethan and Emma drove away, reporters watched in admiration. The CEO who had mocked a hand-built engine had witnessed history. The investors who started a $50 million bidding war discovered that the greatest invention wasn't just an engine. It was the courage of a humble single father who refused to stop believing in his dream.